Welcome everyone to the first Legion tournament, Super Commander. Just waiting for my game to sort itself out. There we go. Nice! And in this it's 3 rounds, best of 3 each round, round robin side of thing. Here we have a tectonic system, and in dark red on the north spawn we have MLA player, or typical PA is now known as MLA with respect to Legion. That is Ljfed, going bots first. Down on the South Pole, however, we have a Legion commander from AdmiralGeneral going vehicles first, or armour first. Now, this is going to be an interesting dichotomy because, of course, MLA versus Legion playstyles, as I discussed earlier in the stream, but for the purposes of the VOD, it's very different. MLA has to expand rapidly, Legion has to play more defensively. And actually, looking at this map, if we take a second to sort of deviate from the build queues, which are pretty standard, a few combat fabs coming out to get the commander reclaim for the extra metal, air second, all pretty natural stuff. The map itself is very open, with, I suppose, a few choke points and a few corridors, but it's very, almost labyrinth-like. I say open and then labyrinth-like. You get my meaning, right? There's a number of different ways of approach, yet still areas of congestion and places to hold. Now that's going to make it slightly tricky for the Legion player, and much nicer for the MLA player early game, because they can get to places, they can expand in many different directions. Meanwhile, the Legion player will have to play much more defensively, because the MLA player has much cheaper units early game, they can get many more out, and so it's all going to be a case of Legion being defensive, trying to grab what expansions they can, and then fortifying themselves until they get the sort of number of units that you want. So Ljfed, very competent PA player, decided not to go Legion because he hasn't played it very much. AdmiralGeneral has played a lot more Legion. So we've got a few scythes coming out here. These are your interceptors for Legion. Gonna go and get a bit of scouting. We did see a Firefly coming out from Ljfed earlier, getting a bit of scouting, seeing where the Legion player is trying to expand to. He sees this fabricator here, he will get up this turret nicely, so these docks will not be able to penetrate this expansion. Hopefully he'll micro those out of the way. He will not. He's sending them straight in. And down they go. So there is a potential expansion lockdown for Admiral. Potential. It's only a single point, and it fires a bit slowly, but still, it's metal, right? And you can already see in Legion he's struggling a little bit on power. He really needs to get power gen sorted. Again, Legion units are much more expensive and much more power intensive. So you can already see, if we go into the army tab there, Ljfed pulling away in unit count, factory count 1 above, as you'd expect. Ideally at this sort of game, MLA, that's how you want to be. You want to be up on factory count. In the economy though, the difference advantage is to AdmiralGeneral, despite having not necessarily expanded as far. That is because Legion metal extractors give you 8 metal, whereas MLA ones only give you 7. But that, of course, is to counter the fact that Legion units are much more expensive. Potential Fabber moving out here, getting again nice expansion lockdowns. He won't get picked off by this docks though, and he's been supported by an entourage of peacekeepers, which is a really nice way to support expanding fabricators against potential docks raids there. Hummingbirds coming in, taking down a batch of scythes there. Scythes cannot shoot backwards, but hummingbirds can, so that is the difference there. Hummingbirds, I believe, are generally, however, slower. They're getting a good bit of scouting on this shank here that's trying to move up, maybe just be a little bit aggressive, just be something on the field to maybe be able to pick off a fabricator at some point in the future. Larger force of docks moving in here though, they could pick off this fabricator, and that's going to be a big win for the MLA player at this stage in proceedings. Nice pick off there, preventing Admiral from getting to these nicely enclosed metal extractors here, and locking down that would have been a big win for Admiral. But again, that was a really nice move from Ljfed, and actually with these docks could threaten some of these metal extractors that have nothing by them to defend. A shank here does have a little bit of area of effect damage, so we'll have to see how he goes. Metal extractor will go down though. Docks are going to dance around this shank like nobody's business. I say dance, I meant to say dance, but there we go. Shank did go down. Peacekeepers versus docks. Peacekeepers will win, they are tankier, so that was good there. Few peacekeepers though coming in from the north from Admiral. Will be picked off by this bumblebee, but still, I mean, this is the thing with Legion. It's a slower start. MLA player, though, Ljfed, has expanded in a huge number of directions. And yes, here we go. T2 moves from Ljfed there. Really nice. At this stage in proceedings, that is a really strong move. T2 coming up from AdmiralGeneral now as well. These are your bot T2. So we could see some Enforcers here. That would make it a really interesting game, especially considering the Enforcer's DPS. The monstrosity on this map would be very powerful. We'll get to the monstrosity and Enforcer when we see them. Having a look around now, though, perhaps it's about time that Admiral really started bolstering up his bot production, possibly even his vehicles. A good move here, though, from Admiral, locking down this expansion. Really nice indeed. Again, the MLA player still just trying to get all these expansions and doing a really good job of it. Perhaps needing to build a bit more power. Almost got his T2 finished, and then we'll be able to start pressuring with some levelers and shellers. Shellers, I believe, will be very, very strong on this map, especially with radar coverage, because they can just fire over all of these bits of rocky outcroppings there. Just wanted to check that everything was working as intended. So, just for those who are unaware of what this building is, this is the Legion storage building, the Omni-Silo storage facility. It stores both metal and power. However, a drawback of that is that if it gets destroyed, it does a bit of area damage. So it's kind of like an explosive device sat in your base if someone can pick it off. Again, that's the same with T2 power gens. And we're starting to focus this down a little bit now, still only with 2 fabricators. Where's his commander done? He's still trying to get up some vehicle factories here, nice to see. Possibly even see some Stokes. They are amphibious and can go and raid some of this naval metal here because they are armed with torpedoes. They do move reasonably fast and they're actually better at raiding mechs than Peacekeepers. Peacekeepers aren't ideal for raiding mechs. This is a really good place here for Admiral to be. He's got a couple of turrets down. He's even got a shredder there, your AA. Those docks going to get locked down very, very quickly indeed. They do get the scout on this expansion, so we've got docks moving in from the other side. But this fabricator is going to survive here. Again, these docks will get taken down, unfortunately for them, so still only doing a little bit of damage, no big wins there. This is very unfortunate for Admiral, not great, sending your sides and sitting them over some Galata, so that's a whole bunch of free kills there for Ljfed. That's actually really, really damaging for Admiral at this stage of the game, who really wants to be keeping air control. The Legion wants to try and get air control. They do have the Patriot T1 bot, which is just pretty good AA, but still, all the same, losing that many scythes for no reason. That was painful to see. Nice little scouting hummingbird coming in here. He's a suicidal thing. He will get picked off by a few scythes there, but he does see the T2. Does Admiral see the T2 in Ljfed's base? No, he hasn't. He hasn't done any scouting at all. This is not great for a Legion player whatsoever. He does not know that T2 vehicles are on the field at this stage in proceedings. He is pushing out with bots now. He is feeling as though he has got the sort of number of units where he can make a bit of a meaningful push. He's got Peacekeepers here to soak a bit of damage. He's got the Shanks to deal the damage. And he's got the Patriots to support versus AA. So in case there are any bumblebees that will come and deal with this army, those Patriots will sort those things out. And as a result of this push, he's feeling as though he can come up and support with some fabric expansion there. Really nice indeed. He does need to watch out for this push, though, because will this push from Admiral leave him a little open in the base? Not necessarily. His commander is over here, so it's ideally suited to just trudge up here and hold this choke point against this army, and it will do so very nicely indeed. Few, as I said, Stokes coming out, raiding some of this naval mechs. Really nice indeed. Sides, that's the right name for them, going in there against a superior air force. Not great. Not great at all. Nicely spread out Stokes there, though. Managing to take down 5 mechs. But Ljfed, though, still leading with the metal and actually floating. And it's because he's getting the T2 up. Still hasn't got any T2 power, but all the same, oh dear, that push from Admiral didn't go very well. That did not go very well whatsoever. You see there that the power of these units versus MLA, you know, this is going to be quite a nice raid here. But again, the T2 is in Ljfed's base, so he will be able to support it based on that alone. These units not focusing down that dual laser turret, and as a result will get locked down. So that was a bit unfortunate again for Admiral. Still, has he seen that T2? No, he hasn't. I don't think he encountered the levelers either. This could be a potential issue for him. He needs to back up a little bit. Perhaps he pushed out a little too early there with those forces. Perhaps he misjudged the T2 timing, but again, he hasn't scouted. He doesn't even know that T2 is a thing. He has played PA long enough to be able to presume that the enemy has T2, especially if Legion has T2. We have got the Enforcers coming out, though. Not amphibious, but they do have quite high DPS. We need to be supported by monstrosities to have any form of longevity against levelers. Monstrosity versus levelers, though, that would be nasty. Possibly even some necromancers. Those are your sort of walking bombs that build boombots on the fly. Seems to be having some potential internet issues here. I see some stuttering. Hope that's not me. But it's the server, that would be okay. We have got the air game coming out now from LJ, so he needs to be a little bit cautious of this. Moving into a force of Shanks and Enforcers there, getting a few nice bombing runs done. Admiral, though, is really quite far behind on the air game, and just unfortunately hasn't been able to ramp up his production as a Legion player really should be doing. I think he underestimated Ljfed's forces when he pushed out, and that is costing him dearly, as now he doesn't really have too much to defend against these levelers. Yes, he has Enforcers here. Yes, he has Shanks, but levelers, if kited, will deal with this army, no questions asked. Taking down all of this. These forces know they don't want to deal with this lot. Yeah, pulling back to the safety of the buildings, getting all of his army all over to this side. He knows that he is in trouble here. Can he deal with it? That is the question. Enforcers coming out now, though. Getting in range of those levelers. We can see their DPS coming into effect. And actually getting rid of them really, really nicely when supported by that entire force there. Very well played indeed. Forcing them all the way back in. He does lose a bunch of expansion and a couple of factories, though, for his trouble. But it's better than losing the game at this stage. So while MLA still has the T2 and eco advantage, massive eco advantage I should say, 410 to 157, that is really not good news for this stage of the game. 13 minutes in, 300 metal behind, that is terrible for a Legion player, that is terrible, terrible news. Trying to get up T2, Admiral there, really stalling on metal. Building mine, no, not mines, walls. I have a similar icon, my mistake. But still, getting walls, turtling in, knowing he has to go on the hard defensive here. Again, this is an interesting choice for Admiral. He can go on the hard defensive, but again, that's relinquishing further map control, further T2 expansion from Ljfed. So Ljfed can continue to have free reign over this map. These small leveler pushes, though, just aren't making the damage anymore. Admiral has adapted his playstyle very, very well here. It's realising that he needs to go on the defensive and is playing very, very nicely when he is defensive as well. Actually, a few Stokes coming in the back of the base here. They will get locked down by a few bombers, hopefully. Potentially doing a bit of damage. Locked down by turrets, unfortunately, there, so not getting any wins there. Perhaps should have gone for the expansion raiding. Again, here, a lot of this metal is from expansion rather than the T2, and a lot of MLA expansion here, Ljfed's expansion, it's not really defended very well. And a few Stokes in force can take down some point defences really, really nicely. So I think Admiral just really needs to get some scouting sorted out. He needs to know where to be able to strike and where to avoid. And equally, where his opponent is coming at him from. He only sees a few forces in various different locations. And his army caught completely out of position here, where there's a T2 force coming in. Let's have a look at that. Sheller in there as well. Few skitters, just in case there's a mine. Also putting in there to be able to use the Sheller's full range and levelers as well. Skitters will be ideally suited to dealing with these mines. Hopefully they won't get too close. These mines, spoilers, are nasty pieces of work. They don't just explode, they deal area damage for a time. Nicely picked up there. The combat fab defense did not work. Those skitters were just gorgeously placed there by Ljfed. Thing is now, though, Admiral's surrounded on all sides. He hasn't necessarily got the units to be able to defend against this. He may be able to defend against this push, but he will lose a lot on this side, though. The thing is, he has this force pushing in. And again, this should be able to win out in this situation here. Let's be able to watch both of these pushes at the same time. So this is really race against time for Admiral. He is going all in. This is his all in this best of 3. Will he be able to make the difference? He loses the Orb Weaver there. The anti-air T2 bots. He still has a few Patriots in this force. The Enforcers coming in though. Can they do their damage? Vanguard's going down. Commander dangerously close to this force. Admiral running for the hills as he knows he can't really defend this base very well. Another force coming in there as we can see on the picture-in-picture. Again, this force continuing to push in, and this just shows the superior might of the Legion units. Ljfed's commander getting caught out here, taking a bit of damage. Much of that is from the commander reclaim though. Bombers coming in and the Patriots are down. That is very, very unfortunate news here for Admiral. This force is going to go. And that is it for Admiral. There's nothing he can do now. He has got positive economy at long last, but unfortunately there is an army in his base. Can he deal with it? Can he defend against this army? This will buy him time. No, he doesn't. He calls the GG. Game 1 goes to Ljfed. Planet is up. Maybe you can all sit. Yes. Good, so. Aha! It's Legion versus Legion! Ljfed. Going risky here. He says he hasn't played Legion very often. And he's playing it versus Admiral, who is much more familiar with the Legion. This is going to be interesting. Could this be a mistake for Ljfed? We will have to see. On the North spawn here on T and Summoner, whatever the map is called. Green Admiral going vehicles first. Legion. No hot build. Damn it. Oh well. That's going to be a mistake. And going bots first as well. Interesting decision. He won't get the early commander reclaim because the combat fab for the Legion is through the vehicle factory, not the bot factory. So already a dichotomy here. Thing is though, Legion vehicles early game, unless you're going to use the Stoke, much less maneuverable, but pack perhaps a bit more of a punch. But the bots are much more massable, so this is going to be interesting. We'll probably see some Peacekeeper and Lancer play by LJ here. This is a really interesting dichotomy. Going air second for Admiral. Nothing out of the ordinary there. And coming up with the Combat Fab Guardian. Let's have a look at the build queues here. So we can already... well, someone's messing around with naval expansions going on there. I don't know what's going on. But air second again from LJ. Perhaps a little bit behind Admiral. It was probably the hot build setting him back a little bit. Coming out with a Marauder here from Admiral. So he's going to be using the early T1 raiding gunship to try and pick off a couple of expanding fabs from LJ. And I think this is the right call, honestly. From Admiral, this is a very nice call in a Legion versus Legion game. It's very lucky that he's gone bots first, although again, bots have the Patriot. Bot factory idle there, not great news. This Marauder is going to take 2 of these fabricators down, and this is going to be a very big early win for Admiral here. Very, very big wins coming up. 2 bot fabbers killed. Marauder does go down, but that was a very good win there for Admiral. Coming out with a scythe now. And expanding down the side with some of these turret placements here. So again, trying to get to these choke points and holding them, as we'd expect from a Legion player. Peacekeepers coming out, rushing up the middle, and even an air fabricator rushing in a thiswardly direction. Going to pick up these metal extractors if it can. That's a very interesting move there, going in a interesting direction, such that hopefully Admiral won't go over there, because it's not necessarily an area that one would expand to. Coming around with a scythe, will it pick up that air fab? Perhaps not. It does not. It doesn't even see the expansion, so really lucky there. Oh, it comes back. Picked up by a different one. Unfortunate there, but that is the risk with the air fabs. Almost got the naval factory up. I feel as though this is a very strong play by LJ. Admiral, as of yet, to go into the naval. But of course, the bowheads, very strong indeed, naval vessels for T1 for Legion. Peacekeepers pushing up will be able to take down this expanding vehicle fabricator, no questions asked. And that is the point of doing all of that. We've got an investigator sat here. This is a sort of quick, fast scout bot, skitter type thing, if you will, in terms of its vision range. But it can transform into a semi-stealth radar there. I say semi because it needs to be detected by stuff, but it can also be shot down by things in vision range. And there again, transforming back into The investigator going to scuttle off. Going up a bit further. Feeling as though it can be a bit more aggressive here. So it can now sit closer and get a bit more radar coverage there. We can see. Stalling a bit on power though. So it's not actually able to use the radar. That's unfortunate. That's probably because he's using this. The catfish though coming out from Ljfed. Those are fast. Almost piranha-esque, but they do have torpedo equipment, so that's a big difference there. This is an interesting move by LJ, I feel. Going up the middle with dual-point laser turrets. Playing much more slowly as you would expect from someone who hasn't played Legion before. Perhaps going a bit too slowly. Perhaps he could be taking a bit more in terms of liberties with the expansion. He did get picked off by Marauders early. He is now getting out his expanding fabricators, so he's doing a bit of luck there. On the north we can see 2-2 bots coming out from Admiral. I feel as though this is a very, very nice move indeed. Enforcers will be very strong here. Perhaps even monstrosities with their range. This force is going to be quite a threat. There is the commander here to support this push, which is going to be nice. A single Uber cannon should be able to deal with that. Nice placement of the Uber cannon, forcing those Shanks on the retreat. Still picking off this metal extractor, being a right old nuisance there. Peacekeepers, though, missing the opportunity to get this fab. Can he save the fab by that Shank? Yes, he can. That was quite nice there. Looking though at the economy disparities, Admiral has got the greater economy now. That is all from the expansion on this side. LJ perhaps could be doing a bit more of an expansion, but he did get set back early game, and that's probably where the main deficiency lies there. Coming out with a rather interesting power generator line placement out in the middle of nowhere. Risky, but if it goes unseen, that could be really good for him. Again, he needs to be able to defend it. What it's going to take is a lowly scythe to come across there and see that expansion, then it'll get locked down and blast LJ's power back into the Stone Age. Commander potentially moving out forward from Admiral there. I think that would be quite a strong move to contest this commander versus commander in this central arena-esque area here. Scythe play from Admiral, superior production there, keeping the air dominance alive. Perhaps at some point he may even start to think about bringing in some Dauntless bombers. You saw there the Stoke dealing with the Catfish, but the Catfish did take off the fabber that was building this bot factory. Commander coming in to support it back, however. LJ's commander making an interesting move here, building factories towards his opponent. That's a very aggressive move. That's a very aggressive move, and if Admiral isn't prepared for this, he could find a lot of vehicles on his doorstep. I honestly feel as though Corsairs would be very strong here. Especially with radar coverage, Corsairs would be very, very strong indeed. They could just sit on the other side of these rocky raised areas and fire over into the base and on any defensive forces, and that would be very, very strong indeed. Still though, if we look in the army tab, 52 Admiral, who surprisingly is 2 factories behind. I mean, I'm looking at the core hub of the base there, and Admiral's looks much more centralised, but more busy, whereas LJ's is much less busy and more spread out. This could play in Admiral's favour if he manages to find a hole and exploit it. We'll have to see. Another naval factory coming up there. We have an Acula coming out. Perhaps a faster submarine there. Not necessarily the right choice against Stokes. I don't know. I haven't seen that confrontation before, but I think Aculas are pretty weak in terms of their hull chassis. Again, you can just see the expansion from Admiral is really paying off here. His economy is much greater there. He is getting tree economy as well, which is something that LJ isn't doing. And the other issue for LJ right now, with all these units in his base, taking down some P-gens, his commander's caught out on the front. Not necessarily doing too much damage. He can send a maul back from the front there, though. Not ideal against tanks, unless it gets in super duper close. But Yeah, he lost a couple of units there, a couple of P-gens, and a couple of mechs. But other than that, okay push. Okay push. Coming in now with Mauls, we have a few Theodores, artillery entrenchments, placed to defend here. And this is a very unwise move. But we have the commander push in with LJ as well. This is a very interesting move to see, because this commander could take a fair bit of damage here if Admiral plays his cards right. Uber Cannon coming off, just missing the Theodore there, and the units for LJ are actually drying up here. Can his commander support this push in the way that it needs to? I think he's taking a bit too much damage here, and he will go down, sacrificing that game. What a mistake from LJ. What a mistake from LJ. Pushed in too early against a base that had T2 bots. Did he have the scout on that? Let's have a look. Like 15 seconds. Did we get it? Yeah. So he saw that the T2 bots was real. He didn't necessarily see that it was completed, but he saw that it was there. This is what he could see as he pushes in. He sees enforcers. He should have backed off the moment he saw an enforcer, rather than lingered around. And he perhaps should have waited for some of these forces to come back up before pushing his commander in. That was a big error of judgment on his part. He even had some bowheads coming out, which would have pushed up the back really nicely there. So if we go back with Chronocam a bit further into that game, go back to both of their vision there. So when he went the early naval, he could have got some bowheads up into the back of that base and dealt a good bit of blowing to the P-gens, as they were all quite centralised. Definitely those early Faber picks by that Marauder helped. Obviously it didn't decide the game, but it set LJ back so much. Because it took him until 5 minutes in to actually get even the closest metal expansion. That's really, really powerful in terms of how far setback he was. So I'm going to bet the spawns are here. I'm guessing. It's not too hard to assume. So that gives you the option to either go onto the land to maybe get vehicles for Stokes with their torpedo capabilities, or go straight for naval. Round 3 of round 1, game 3 of round 1, best of 3, Super Commander round 1, etc, etc, Legion tourney. You know the dribble, doodle, what's it? I don't know. The game's starting. I'm going to stop blathering on, because there's a game to cast. So, Admiral on the South Pole. Legion again, going, yeah, on the ground there with vehicles. Rather than going naval first, let's actually put caps lock on so we can see the builds coming up. Couple of P-gens there, going into naval very, very quickly indeed. Oh, cancelled. Couple of P-gens. Maybe air? Yes, air it is. Aha! So he's going to go for the Marauder, maybe try and pick up another Fabric again. He saw that it worked last game. Maybe he can get another pick this game. Meanwhile, LJ, North, spawn in red, gone for naval first, rather than going on land. So again, he's not using comm reclaim. Importantly, Legion don't get a combat fab naval vessel until T2, at which point it's a combat fab sub. He is going for bots, though. Very curious. I mean, Peacekeepers are amphibious. I don't think Lancers are. And I don't think Purges are. I think Patriots might be. We'll have to see how that works out. I don't rightly understand going bots first, but he's got the naval fabbers out to expand to these 3. Nice moves there. Let's pop that on the opposite so you can see what's going on his side. Admiral's side, though, he's got the Guardian out, reclaiming his comm. You can see the difference there. Already 30 plus metal. Is it 30? 45! That's even more than regular MLA will get you. Marauder coming out though. It will get picks, not denied. Lucky Talos coming out there with its range, saving those naval vessels there. That was very, very fortunate of LJ, and quite a good support. So he has that. He can now maybe put up a shredder, and I think that's what he's got there, the AA emplacement. So he's secured these 3 mechs early game. What's Admiral building? Catfish perhaps? No, Stokes it is. Stokes going around. And actually, we've got an Osprey coming out. He's going to be transporting Fabbers to various different locations. Airfab's coming out from LJ as well. Really risky play from both of these players. Osprey versus Airfab. So he's got a vehicle fab in the Osprey going for the mainland. With quite a good bit of metal expansion here. Potential for 64 mechs if it's all T1. 8 T1 mechs for Legion, 64. That'll be pretty good in supporting high naval pushes going forward. Very, very good indeed. Why have we got no soundtrack? Curious. Finally, you got a couple of naval fabs coming out and doing their expansion. Pushing forward though to get the mechs there. Don't rightly understand quite what he's queued all of those up for. Sides coming out for the expansion though, not an expansion, scouting. Also for the air game. LJ. He's only got 1 air factory to Admiral's 2, so he's losing out on some of that production there. They're all coming out with the Stokes. Acula taking the ground there. Well, yeah, that's going to be really strong if Admiral can get all of these mechs without LJ knowing what's going on there. Meanwhile, though, LJ with this airfab is being able to do a fair bit of stuff there, you know. Admiral, meanwhile, in his base, idle comm. Perhaps that's because he's routing a few things around the place, but still, you know, you don't want an idle comm. He's floating heavily. What's going on with Admiral? Perhaps he wants to be getting another naval factory. Maybe even another vehicle factory. Has Admiral disconnected? This isn't great news, and this is really nice work from this Acula here. From LJ, although it seems to fail to fire on things adjacent to it. It needs to rotate a little bit. There we go. Finally got those torpedoes on the way. And LJ actually now getting ahead with the metal despite not using the Commander Reclaim. But he is falling behind on power, and that's something he needs to address. Stokes actually making landfall here. Preventing the turret from going up. Fortunately, there is a bowhead sat there to defend, but still, that's not great news. Picked up a couple of Fabbers and a few units there as well. That's not great news. Looking at the Acula making work on Admiral's base, did get taken down by Stokes there. This is interesting in a Legion versus Legion naval game, that you see more Stokes than anything else. I mean, Aculas are not like Barracudas. They're much more flimsy. Pop, pop. Go the Stokes. Because Aculas really want to be in larger packs, but then again, there's not really much for them to target right now, so sending off all of their torpedoes, not quite getting down the mechs. Tried their whole volley and didn't quite manage it, but still, there's no real targets for the Aculas right now. This push here from Admiral is actually quite aggressive and potentially threatening to LJ because you got the ripple there. The torpedo defense. Well, the equivalent of torpedo defense. T2 naval coming up though from LJ. Still struggling with the power. Come on, LJ. Get your power in check. Don't know quite what he's playing at. Uh-oh. This air game though. Marauder, a couple of airfabs. Bunch of scythes in there. And focusing down the T2 naval, finally Admiral's got his base doing stuff. As suspected, you get up a second naval factory, you want that naval production. T2 naval, though, will provide him with the Epoch, which will be quite powerful here. Possibly even the Jaeger can come in from behind. But let's not forget the Hammerhead. It is a naval base, so it'll be interesting to see what... If the Hammerhead is used against an actual base that isn't particularly defended... Ooh, that would be nasty. Ooh, that would wreck face. There's the scout on this expansion here. Admiral maybe moves some sides over here to get rid of this airfab. He doesn't notice it at the moment. Actually moving them in a different direction here. Again, a potential misplay here, but he's actually opting to support his own naval fabs, possibly even push in, defend his own expansion. This Marauder could separate from all of those sides and come over here, get rid of these peacekeepers that are threatening these expansions. Admiral has clawed back the metal advantage now, though. That'll be this whole place here. Finally coming to fruition. Still with the air game, though, and the T2 naval is complete. So we're going to get the T2 eco. T2 eco there. Again, it'll be interesting to see actually what comes out after that Faber. Both players really struggling for power, it seems, with this naval game. Haven't been too many Naval Legion games played thus far. Again, more peacekeepers coming in, raiding mechs. They're not great for raiding, but if left unchecked, you know, they can deal their damage over time. And as long as the mechs goes down, who cares, right? Not gonna get up onto that little bit there. However, Stokes coming in. I think he's even using the line movement mod there to be able to spread those out on that line. Acula coming in. Stokes aren't necessarily prepared for this. But these catfish, though, locking down these expansions. Seeing how the ripples do. Ripples don't even one-shot catfish? What? Catfish in groups absolutely will wreck ripples then. Or these sort of expansion points. I don't know how ripples range compares to MLA's torpedo launchers. But wow. That's quite a thing. And we have an Epoch. Long range. Coming out from Ljfed. It is an Epoch, isn't it? Yeah. Just checking. And an Epoch. No, a Jaeger. Coming out for Admiral. No Epochs to be seen here. Oh-ho. Fab's actually doing the whole reclaim shenanigans over here, getting rid of all those mechs expansions and actually setting LJ back into the red with his mechs. So overall, this game with Admiral, he's just been taking his time, expanding. He hasn't necessarily upped his production in accordance with his expansion. Perhaps he could be a bit more aggressive with building additional factories. But still, playing it really well as a Legion player. Gradually getting his expansion sorted. Playing really well. Just sort of being everywhere. And pushing Ljfed back from the centre. And then pushing up further. Establishing little annoying pockets of stuff. Taking the air game as well. There's not a lot going on in LJ's base. He's trying to get back into the air game, but is it too little too late? I think it might be, because he can't necessarily contest this at this stage. And as we did see earlier, Admiral building even more air factories, so that's going to be a no-brainer for Admiral to keep in touch with the air game there. LJ running his sides in far too early, taking very unfavourable confrontations. Sides cannot shoot backwards. They didn't even do their full potential damage there. Wow, completely decimated. You even see the Always tempted to say kaijus, but they're Jaegers, aren't they? Jaegers coming in into force. Lots of Stokes. I'm amazed at how many Stokes we see in play here. They're just faster than naval overall, it would seem. Especially considering Legion naval, you kind of have to have Catfish or Acula for your torpedo support, because none of the other ships really have torpedo capabilities. So if you get Stokes versus a group of bowheads like this, and even an Epoch or Talos, there's no torpedo support here whatsoever. And these Stokes can just deal damage over time. And there's nothing to stop them. These Acula, aptly suited to dealing with all of this. Oh, wow. That Epoch shot, though, wrecking that force of Aculas. And moving into the range of Ripples here with these Aculas. Not great news either. Again, Ripples really just don't do much, do they? They really are weak. They really, really are weak. So while Legion lands, the defences are okay. The torpedo launcher is so weak. Especially against Legion. I don't know how it does against MLA, but that was just weak. Again, this Epoch coming in, sorting things out from LJ, making a really nice push here. Again, these Aculas coming in from behind, just dealing the torpedo damage, and there's nothing defending this Epoch. It's not even getting all of its shots off, and it will go down in just a second. There it goes. Still the air game is in Admiral's court. LJ trying to get up his air production. He's finally got his economy in check. He could do more in terms of air production, but still struggling to keep map control, because Admiral just is everywhere now. Even moving. Clumps of Stokes. Pushing up with a T2 Faber and Hives. Oh no. Not great news. Jaeger's coming out as well up the middle. Up the little canal here. Bowhead's actually overshooting. And the size. Oh, there's the Epoch shot. These Jaegers aren't going to last long. Getting the scout on the Epoch there. These Jaegers, are they going to... Yeah, they want to split up, but damn, the Epoch just sniping these things before they can get anywhere. Really nice play there. Ljfed GGing, knowing he's been out-expanded. Stokes coming in on the front side as well. I think that's what sealed it. The Stokes, the Aculas, just assuming that he would have been outgunned at that point. GG is called. Admiral takes that victory in that best of 3. Very well played. Very well played. Ha!
Actually.
Yes. We have an extraordinary amount of air, not much else.
Yeah, I forgot Admiral was in the Star scheme.
Shit.
Ho ho ho! Nom 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 nom! Nom 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 nom! Oh!
Locust walking straight through our base.
Oh! That's glorious! I'm loving this! No! Damn bombers! Oh, that was a nice Locust raid if I do say so myself.